Hello, I hope you're having a good day. Today we'll be watching a movie called The Cloverfield Paradox. In the near future, Earth is suffering from a global energy crisis. Humanity has built the Cloverfield station to test and launch the Shepard particle accelerator into space. If the mission succeeds, it will provide an unlimited energy source for the entire planet, potentially preventing wars over resources. Ava Hamilton receives an invitation to join the crew and head to orbit for 6 months, although she is very reluctant to leave her husband behind. However, Michael convinces her to accept, reminding her that even the mission commander, who is aware of their family struggles, insists on her participation, which means she's truly important to the mission. Moreover, she is extremely talented, and if she goes and does her job, both Earth and her family might have a chance to survive. The Shepard team travels into space and begins their experiments. However, the initial tests are unsuccessful, and the crew ends up spending 2 years aboard the station continuing their trials. Ava communicates with Michael every day, and her husband tells her how things on Earth are deteriorating. Oil wars are escalating, energy sources are nearly depleted, and as a result, hunger, disease, and social collapse are spreading. Ava shares her concerns. There's only enough fuel left for 3 more attempts, and if they fail, the mission will be considered a total failure. Michael tries to encourage her, but the connection is lost. Ava then plays a video of her children playing and cries in front of the screen. Later, she heads to the bridge, where the rest of the crew is resting. Suddenly, the mechanic Volkov begins talking about how, despite doing his job honestly, the accelerator still doesn't work, and in his opinion, it's the German, Schmidt, who's to blame. News reports increasingly mention that Germany is preparing for war. More Russians are starving every day, and Schmidt shows no urgency. Upon hearing these accusations, Schmidt lunges at Volkov. The others try to calm the fight and remind everyone of the importance of their work. For a while, it works. Shortly after, the crew prepares for the next Shepard launch. The scientists warn them that if the attempt fails, it could cause parallel realities to become permeable. As a result, a universe filled with monsters or demons could leak into the human world, or time itself could become unstable, leading to global catastrophe. As he listens, Volkov calibrates the gyroscope while Monk recites a strange prayer, asking for strength to save humanity and prevent war among nations. The Shepard is launched. A countdown begins and it works. A massive surge of energy flows from the accelerator, but suddenly, everything stops. The ship begins to shake. Explosions are heard outside the walls. The crew is thrown through the air, and a fire alarm sounds on the lower deck. However, the fire suppression system fails, and the crew activates the ventilation. When the emergency symptoms subside, the team begins to assess the damage. Later, as repairs begin, the team notices numerous anomalies. There's no communication with Earth, the electrical system has collapsed, and the internal temperature rises by the minute. Then Ava announces something else. The Earth has disappeared from view. At first, no one believes her. Some suggest they might have been flipped around or thrown to the far end of the galaxy. The crew scatters through the ship, hoping to see Earth through the windows while Ava tries to contact her husband, but it's all in vain. There's no planet and no signal can get through. Heated arguments erupt. Everyone blames each other. It even gets to the point where the astronauts believe their actions might have destroyed Earth entirely. Eventually, the captain gathers the crew around the table and proposes they stop fighting and focus on the task at hand, because if they don't survive, they'll never know the truth. He assigns roles. When Volkov reports that the guidance system changed after rebooting the Shepard, it means the problem might be in the gyroscope. But when Ava approaches the device, it turns out the gyroscope has simply vanished, making it impossible to determine the ship's coordinates. At that moment, a crew member feels something strange, as if the skin on his face is moving. He asks Ava to take a look when suddenly a terrifying scream echoes down the hallway, and both of them run toward the sound. The crew gathers as well. They search the quarters, confused by the strange noise. Eventually, Tam points to a wall that seems to be the source of the scream. She suggests removing the panel, but this immediately sparks a debate. It could be dangerous. Despite the risks, the engineers remove the panel and, to the crew's astonishment, discover a woman apparently fused into the cables and pipes of the ship's life support system. No one knows what to do. If they cut the cables, they might damage life support, and no one knows who this woman is. However, she suddenly addresses Ava by her last name, says she doesn't know what's happening to her, and begs for help. The crew frees her from the cables and takes her to the infirmary. When they cut off her clothes, the astronauts are horrified. There are wires running through her body, causing her intense pain. She is sedated with a strong injection. Meanwhile, on Earth, Michael hears explosions outside. Checking social media, he reads posts suggesting the end of the world has begun. Many people write that they must flee the city. Michael calls his hospital. He knows they need him there, but no one answers. Back on the station, the crew continues to argue about the strange incident with the woman, possible ways to save the ship, and how to find Earth. One thing is clear: everything is a consequence of the Shepherd. First of all, the crew must continue the repairs. The injured woman is connected to a cellular regeneration accelerator, while the others return to their workstations. No one notices that the foosball figures on the table start moving on their own. Meanwhile, in the lab, Mundy discovers that the worms have disappeared from their sealed containers. At the same time, a tense argument arises between Tam and Schmidt, even though the two are in a romantic relationship. Elsewhere, Volkov feels movement again under his skin, and moments later his eye begins behaving strangely, spinning in its socket. He starts talking to someone inside himself, first arguing, then agreeing. Then he walks over to the 3D printer and creates a weapon. With the weapon in hand, Volkov heads to the bridge and points it at Schmidt, accusing him of working for German intelligence. Tom and Schmidt try to calm him down, unable to understand what's happening to him, but Volkov insists that the German was sent to sabotage the Shepherd launch. Suddenly, Schmidt collapses and starts convulsing. The crew gathers, alarmed by what is happening. Volkov then vomits the worms that had gone missing from the lab and dies. The astronauts are still in shock, and no one notices that the woman they found among the cables appears in an old photo of the previous crew. Just then, the woman regains consciousness. She says her name is Mina, and the last thing she remembers is going to help Mundy. She says she's been on the station for 2 years with the same crew, except for Tam. Ava insists that Tam built the Shepherd, and that without her, the project would have been impossible. But Mina claims she was the one who created it. Her crew has been trying to activate the accelerator for 2 years without success. She also says that Ava is her best friend, and that she stayed on Earth. Most importantly, she warns them not to trust Schmidt, who allegedly sabotaged the experiment to help Germany win the war against Russia. Enraged, the commander storms into Schmidt's lab, punches the German, and locks him in a compartment, declaring that he has decoded messages that fully prove his guilt. Meanwhile, catastrophic events are unfolding on Earth. Something is destroying everything in its path and killing thousands. Michael drives to his hospital, only to discover that communication with the station has been lost. Then he sees burning ruins, stops the car, and gets out, only to witness the gigantic shadow of an unknown monster rising through the smoke. He then rescues a little girl trapped under the debris. Meanwhile, on the station, Mundy is repairing a wall panel when suddenly his arm is absorbed by it, and then simply torn off. The stunned crew rushes him to the infirmary, where Mundy calmly moves his stump, feeling no physical pain. The crew realizes they are now living under a new set of rules, but no one knows what they are. At that moment, the doors to the compartment where Schmidt is locked suddenly open, and he sees Mundy's severed hand moving on its own. He contacts the crew and asks them to meet him on the main deck. When they arrive, they manage to trap the roaming hand under an aquarium. Schmidt proposes a theory. 2 universes have collided at a single point, merging into each other and fighting for dominance, which is causing chaos. Mundy then notices that the hand seems to want to write something. When given a pen, the hand writes a message suggesting they should open Volkov's body. The astronauts head to the infirmary. Tam performs the operation, and inside Volkov they discover the missing gyroscope. With it, they are able to determine their coordinates. Somehow the ship ended up in another part of the solar system. But now they know where to go. Ava immediately receives transmissions from Earth. Unfortunately, the news is grim. A global war has been ongoing for 14 months, and the Cloverfield station is presumed lost, supposedly crashed into the ocean. The crew realizes that activating the accelerator truly caused an overlap of 2 dimensions, and that they are now in an alternate reality. To return home, they must repair and relaunch the Shepherd. The quantum entanglement will work in reverse and bring them back to their original dimension. Some argue that landing in this reality would be safer, but Schmidt proves that doing so won't save their original world. Meanwhile, on Earth, Michael drives the rescued girl to the hospital, only to find out the clinic has been destroyed. He's told to look for a safer place. Michael contacts a friend who has a shelter, drives there, and gives the girl medical help. Back on the station, Mina thanks Monk for his professionalism and shares her theory about the accident. She reminds them that escaping her reality would leave her trapped in theirs. Meanwhile, Tam suggests inspecting the ventilation system since it was activated just when everything started to fail. She enters the compartment and finds a water leak. Schmidt is relieved the malfunction has been found, but Tam becomes trapped in an airlock that quickly fills with water. She manages to send a distress signal, and the crew runs to help her. But the doors are jammed, and no matter how hard they try, they can't open them. Instead, the external hatch gives in to the water pressure, the compartment depressurizes, and Tam is instantly frozen in the now solid ice. The crew is in shock after the loss of the Shepherd's creator. Their chance to return home seems lost until Ava remembers Mina. Meanwhile, on Earth, Michael receives confirmation that the station has indeed disappeared. He asks the authorities to help locate the girl's parents, when suddenly a terrifying scream is heard outside. Back on the station, Mina agrees to repair the Shepherd in exchange for a capsule and the blueprints she needs to return to her home. Ava brings her some clothes, and Mina shares that her family is alive in her dimension. In Ava's world, her children died in a fire caused by a fuel cell she herself had installed. Mina plays a message from Ava 2's family, where she never joined the mission because everyone was still alive. After calculating all their options, the crew decides to temporarily shut down the oxygen supply to divert power to the accelerator. Ava, distressed, tells the captain she'll do whatever it takes to bring the crew back home. But she'll stay behind to warn her alternate self about the danger of the fire. Later, Mundy heads to the designated compartment and begins the shutdown. Suddenly, a strange magnetic activity erupts. The cables wrap around him, the oxygen ignites, and half the station is violently torn from the command module. The detached section clings to the main structure and begins to spin, raising the risk of total destruction. The crew realizes they must eject the ring to save the accelerator. The commander, Ava, and Monk head outside, and with great difficulty they manage to reach the partially detached section. There, the captain realizes the operation must be done manually. He sends his companions back, then pulls the release valve, vanishing into space along with the debris. On Earth, Michael is informed that the girl's parents have been found. He records a message for his wife, asking her to give their relationship another chance. Back on the station, Ava takes command and gives the order to launch the Shepherd. She hands the ignition key to Monk and then heads to the escape pod, accompanied by Mina. But suddenly Mina strikes Ava, takes a gun, and heads to the bridge. The truth is that Mina wants to keep the station operational, to replace the one that crashed into the ocean in her world and save her Earth. She decides to seize the station, kills Monk, and takes the launch keys. Ava regains consciousness and chases after her, just as Mina runs into Schmidt. Seeing Ava, Mina reminds her of the decision. Kill 3 people here to save 8 million in her world. How could anyone do otherwise? She raises the gun, but Schmidt intervenes and the keys end up in Ava's hands. She flees, and Mina shoots Schmidt again before pursuing her. Mina knows Ava has nowhere to hide in what remains of the station and plays a recording of Ava's children to lure her out. Struggling with the temptation to stay in a world where her children are alive, Ava ultimately decides to return to her own reality. She defeats Mina by ejecting her through a broken hatch into space. Ava then records a message for her alternate self and attaches the Shepherd blueprints before sending them to Earth 2. Alongside Schmidt, Ava activates the accelerator and returns to her original dimension. They establish contact with Earth and report that the accelerator is stable. They descend in a re-entry capsule, still unaware of how much reality on Earth may have changed. Michael receives the news that the station has been found and that Ava is returning home. He screams in despair, she must not come back here, as he tries to stop the landing. Ava and Schmidt's descent capsule pierces the clouds, and a colossal creature raises its massive head, letting out an infernal roar. The Cloverfield Paradox is the third film in the franchise about the collision of worlds, continuing the story of humanity's struggle against threats from parallel dimensions. And who knows how it will all end. I hope you enjoyed the video.